Not me asking, but our speakers are asking to know who you are and where you're joining us from today. So if you would be so kind as to either open your microphone and tell us or enter that into your chat box.
You're asking to know who you are.
It would be grateful for that. Stacy is joining us from Phelps County Development Corp here in Holdridge. But I don't want to keep everybody from just chatting either. So as you're joining that, feel free to open your microphone and bring up something. Lance, welcome. Thank you. From up in South Sioux. Hopefully the weather is better there. So Rebecca from Curtis has joined us from just chatting either. So as you're joining that, feel free to. And I hear myself talking.
Yeah, sorry. I have to, so it's tricky. Like I have to mute it on the computer, and I have.
Sherry, I just lost you. While she's rejoining us, Pat is joining us from South Sioux. And I have already missed a few of you. Josh is joining us from here in Holdridge. Brenda from Excel Development Group in Lincoln. So we already have 3 areas of the state represented. Doreen is joining us from Rural Development in Kearney. Hi, Doreen. Beverly Hanson from Bertrand. She's faithful about participating. Welcome to Beverly. So Sherry, do we have you back yet? Okay, you're still muted.
Back. It's just tricky to get everything, the recording, the YouTube, the live, and I hit the wrong button.
Okay,
Myself out.
I see. Patty has joined us from Burke County, I believe. I remember. So Sally has joined us from here in Holdridge. So let's share with our presenters where everyone is joining us from today. So I just checked my temperature. I don't think we're above freezing yet this afternoon. We'll wait a while longer before we get started.
Hey guys. Hello, I meant to say hello and I looked and I was a blank screen, and it's this darn keeping my laptop closed while I work on the bigger screen, and then I forget it doesn't have a camera. So, hey everybody, how's your day?
It's going well today.
Good.
Hey Sharon.
Beverly just confirmed it's 27 degrees in Bertrand, so it is chilly out there. So
Bev and I got to hang out at a quiz bowl meet last week together.
nice.
And I found out I am not smarter than a 6th grader.
I tried watching Collegiate Jeopardy last week one evening. I think I maybe knew 3 answers total, but I did get one before the collegians did, so I felt pretty good about that. And then I just quit watching. Didn't need any more negativity in my life. So
Yeah, I have a 3rd grader and I help her with her math, and it's kind of embarrassing. Sometimes I have to like go to the cobwebs in my brain to think through some of that stuff.
yeah. So I have a 10-year-old grandson. So that means his mother is my daughter, and she resorted to old math that she learned to help him with his new math. And so she has officially arrived in the old world of mathematics. So Dina has joined us from Minden. Hello, Dina. Welcome. So I told our presenters who you are and where you're joining us from today. Feel free to enter that in your chat box or open your microphone. They have made this request of wanting to know where everybody is joining us from. So we want to honor that request. David, welcome. I see Jean is joining us from Columbus. Jerry from Burning Bank, welcome.
Elsie is on there from Kearney, from Buffalo County, and yeah.
Elsie, yes. Gary, which branch of Bruning Bank are you joining us from?
I'm at home today in Bruning. So how are you guys doing, Lori and Sharon? Good to see you.
Yes, good to
Hey.
see you.
Yeah.
Okay. We will continue to wait just a few more minutes, but I know, okay, help me with pronunciation. Is it McKella from Norfolk Area Economic Development Council has joined us? My apologies in advance if I mispronounce that. We do have a lot of great information. Go ahead.
I think our group is inordinately quiet today. I don't know. I feel like, come on, guys, wake up.
Harley just joined us from Thayer County Economic Development, and she's officing in Hebron. So we're recording this, and it will also be on our YouTube channel. So in case you are having difficulty with the Zoom link or just can't get on, because we do have high numbers of registration today, feel free to log on to our YouTube channel to watch as well. So we monitor that and keep track of that also. So we don't want anyone to miss out. So we do have that at your disposal if you wish. Taryn with NDEE is calling in and joining us from Waverly. New bride. Well, it is just a little bit after 2, and because our presenters have so much good information, I do want to get started and honor their time this afternoon. And also, before we get underway, I want to acknowledge that the Nebraska Department of Economic Development are our partners in the HomeNE, and we are fortunate to have representatives from the department as our speakers as well today. So we are doubly excited to have them with us. So check out our YouTube channel, as I mentioned, and let me just formally welcome all of you to today's HomeNE webinar. I'm Lori Ferguson with the South Central Economic Development District here in Holdridge. So thank you for joining us today. Our HomeNE webinar series continues to expand across the state, and so many of you have been faithful in helping us to grow this statewide learning network. It's our goal that your organization or community is seeing housing success as a result of your participation in HomeNE and opportunities that it presents. So whether this is your first webinar, and we have over 20 new people joining us today, according to Sherry, whether it's your first HomeNE webinar or one of many, we welcome you here today. So thank you for contributing to our growth. And today we have the pleasure of hearing from not 1, 2, or 3, but actually 4 individuals, Lynn Cohote, Michelle Grimes, and Barb Pierce of the Nebraska Department of Economic Development are joining us, as well as Ben Conover of Conover Properties. So they are our presenters, and I am excited to have them share with us today. So before we begin, we want to hear from all of you who are joining us. What interests you about today's topic, as well as what do you hope to know more about at the end of today's webinar? So use your chat box and give us your responses to those questions that are appearing on your screen. So HomeNE is a learning network, and we do learn best when we interact and engage with each other. So we want to hear from you throughout the webinar. We will be taking questions at the conclusion of our speaker's presentation. So feel free to enter those in your chat box as well, and we'll be monitoring that. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Heffley. She is the Executive Director of South Central Economic Development District. Sharon?
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the February edition of the HomeNE 2022 webinar series. I hope you're enjoying the weather that we've brought you in 2022. I'm sure we're to thank for that. I don't know if you like the lack of snow and blizzards, but I'm enjoying it. So the South Central Economic Development District is the lead agent for this learning network, and we are glad you're here. HomeNE is designed for people from all across Nebraska that are seeking to successfully assess and address their housing issues. The purpose is to provide a setting that provides face-to-face and online opportunities to foster interaction, engagement, and skill building for local individuals who are passionate about addressing the housing shortage in their communities, and a setting that also empowers and encourages those who participate to apply what they learn through the different avenues available to them. So Lori's already told you who's joining us, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Michelle Grimes is a member of the housing team. She serves as the housing specialist for the Home Investment Partnerships Fund and National Housing Trust Fund. She also provides technical assistance and award management to the grantees across the state. Her background includes banking, real estate lending, finance, grant writing, a legal assistant, and marketing. She and her husband, John, live in Norfolk and have 4 grown children and 8 grandchildren. Barb Pierce joined DED's housing team in March of 2020 as the Northeast Housing Rep and has recently taken the role of housing specialist for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund and Community Development Block Grant Owner-Occupied Rehab Programs. It's easier to say when I say it in alphabet soup speak, but she offices remotely from Fremont, where she and her husband reside, along with their German short-hair pointer named Bear. They have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren. Prior to joining DED, Barb worked as the Director of Existing Business for Greater Fremont Development Council. As a housing specialist, both Barb and Michelle lead the department's efforts in the development of applications, annual application guidelines, recipient workshops, housing program guidelines, and annual plans, and they assist with onboarding new housing program representatives. Lynn Cohout is the Director of Housing for the State of Nebraska Department of Economic Development. The department's housing team oversees 3 state and 3 federally funded programs that support workforce and income-based housing projects across Nebraska. Excuse me. Lynn joined the team at DED in 2009 and previously worked with the Neighborhood Stabilization Program and in the Business Development Division before rejoining the housing team in May of 2018. Lynn and her husband, John, live in Omaha and have a 7-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. And Ben Conover, Ben's bringing his perspective as a redeveloper. And the thing I want you to notice is when we promote HomeNE to all kinds of people in your community, that's people like Ben, you know, people that aren't maybe on the city council, or they're not on the economic development, or they're not in some specific role. So this is exciting. Conover Properties was founded in 2015 when buildings in Pierce, Tilden, and Madison were renovated. Currently, a major renovation project in Norfolk is also underway. With the incredible need for housing in Norfolk and the surrounding areas, Ben found that not only could modern, efficient housing be provided, but also old, worn-out downtown buildings could be saved in the process. You can find a complete list of pictures and projects at the website that I just put up in the chat, conoverproperties.com. Ben joined Heritage Financial Services in 2008 and is now a partner. He's a graduate of UNL with a Bachelor of Finance and prides himself in using creativity and out-of-the-box thinking when designing custom financial strategies for his clients. Along with his passion of renovating old buildings into beautiful housing developments, Ben is active in aviation, and he's a private pilot, licensed pyrotechnician with one of the and vice president of Big Bang Boom in Norfolk, where he helps with one of the largest fireworks shows in Nebraska. Last but not least, he is building 5 Tommy Express car washes across Nebraska, and we'll have them all opened by the end of the year. Ben and his wife, Sarah, have 3 children, Lucy, Brennan, and Dylan, and they enjoy traveling and spending time with family. And I love the motto that Ben shared with us. If they say it's impossible, remember, it's impossible for them, not you. So with that, welcome to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? All right, great. Hi, Sharon, Lori, thank you for the great introductions. I'm Lynn Cohout with the Department of Economic Development. I work with our 10-member housing team within the state, and Sharon reached out, and I I committed to doing this, so I brought my good team members along to help me today, who are really the experts. So first of all, like I said, thank you very much for having us. We at the department, we appreciate being able to share our message and share our story about how housing programs, how state and federally funded housing programs can be of access to you, how you can access them, and how you can utilize our programs to implement successful projects across Nebraska. So we're excited to share information on our programs, and to help share some of the successful stories from across the state that we've been able to be a part of. At the agency, we always start our meetings with kind of reminding ourselves why we're here and what our governor's mission is for us. And so I just kind of wanted to share that with you today, kind of what our vision and what our mission is. And so at the agency and at the state, our vision is to grow Nebraska. And our mission at the department is to provide quality leadership and services that enable our communities, our Nebraska communities, our businesses and our people to succeed in a global economy. And so I think that's really important to be reminded of. And I really think housing plays a part in that, because as a state, as a Department of Economic Development, we can grow talent, we can bring jobs, we can maintain the jobs that we have here. But really, if we don't have the housing and if we don't have the quality housing, and if we don't have housing options within our communities, it's really hard to maintain those companies and to encourage people to live in the communities we have. So every day when my team comes to work, we are doing a very important job with helping communities access our programs to implement housing programs and really get housing projects off the ground in communities. A past director one time shared this quote, and so I'd like to share it with you today. And it just says, living here is just as important as working here. That's why business isn't our only focus. When you get right down to it, the strength of our communities and the people living in them are Nebraska's foundation. It's where it all starts. And so the foundation of our communities not only are our businesses, but are our housing. And so I think we have a really important job to address the housing needs of our community and to maintain quality housing across Nebraska in every community. So today, I'm going to turn it over here shortly to Barb, but Barb and Michelle are really going to do the majority of the presentation, and they're really going to talk about 4 different housing programs that we have. But at the state, and within our housing team, we really oversee and manage 6 programs, 3 which are state-funded programs and 3 federally funded programs. So the 3 state programs that our team oversees is the Rural Workforce Housing Fund, the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund, and the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We're not going to speak today to the rural workforce or get into the details of the Rural Workforce Housing Fund program or the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund program, because right now we don't have any financial dollars in those programs. The Rural Workforce Housing Fund program received an allocation twice through the legislature, once in 17 and once in 2020, and we have allocated all those funds. And then the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund received an allocation from the legislature in 2020, and we've invested all those dollars. But I think it's important for communities to be aware of those programs, to know the names of them, because I think through this legislative session, we're going to hear a lot about those programs and potentially putting some additional dollars into them. Barb's going to speak on the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund today, and then we're going to hear about 3 other federal programs. Barb will speak on the Community Development Block Grant Owner-Occupied Rehab Program, and then she'll turn it over to Michelle, who's going to talk about 2 federal programs that we oversee and how those dollars are utilized in kind of some successful projects we've seen across the state with those 2 funding sources. And those are the Home Investment Partnerships Fund and the National Housing Trust Fund. So I had the easy part really of just introducing my team, and I'm going to turn it over to Barb, Barb and I are in the same room, so I'm just going to turn my computer and she's going to take it away.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, and welcome everyone. I'm so glad that everyone could join us today. And we know that you are folks in your communities that are very interested in how you can help your communities drive the housing development efforts. And we're so excited to partner with you on that. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit high level about the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It was established in 1996 through the Nebraska Affordable Housing Act, and it's funded by a portion of the documentary stamp tax that is collected from the real estate transactions that go on in the state. So also annually, we put out a draft of the annual qualified allocation plan for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we take in public comments during that time. Usually happens in December, and a final QIP is published when the application goes live. So we have eligible applicants that are including governmental subdivisions, public housing authorities, community action agencies, community-based, neighborhood-based, 501c3 and 501c4 organizations. And along with them, they can partner with the for-profit entities like developers, builders, other organizations, but the eligible applicant has to be the nonprofit or governmental agency. The activities that can be done during the cycle of the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund include homeowner rehabilitation, home buyer activities, rental housing, and we also have capacity building for the nonprofits who are doing housing projects and housing development in the state of Nebraska. A little bit about homeowner rehabilitation. This is with the owner-occupied rehab for eligible homeowners. And we have rental projects that can include new construction or rehab of existing units. And home buyers can include home buyer assistance, as well as purchase, rehab, and resale, and new construction. And then, of course, the technical assistance and capacity building for the nonprofits. So currently, we have the 2022 Trust Fund application cycle has just opened on February 3rd. The application guidelines can be found on the DED website. You can see the link there to the trust fund's web page. On there, you'll find everything you need to know about applying, as well as the links to the pre-application and the full application. The pre-application is required. That's due on March 3rd. The full application due date is May 5th. Within the application guidelines, you will find some links along with a timeline that is going to kind of keep you on track for everything that has to be done in order to meet the May 5th, 2022's full application due date. We have some resources to help you be successful with your application. There's a pre-recorded workshop that is posted right now for the pre-application. You can access that on the DED's webpage. There's an open office hours that is coming up next Tuesday, February 22nd, to discuss the pre-application. You can submit questions. That's 9 o'clock Central Time on Tuesday. We're going to be also pre-recording and posting a full application workshop that can be viewed and listened to prior to joining open office hours on March 15th, 16th, 22nd, and 24th. Anyone is welcome to join during those open office hours. And of course, we want you to feel free to call on your DED housing program representative in the region that your project is in for any questions throughout the whole process. You can go to next slide. This next slide is going to be showing just a list of the 2021 recipients. There were 34 awards that went out to 21 applicants in last year's cycle. And you can see there's a mixture of communities as well as organizations, and they are of all sizes, from Village of Clearwater to Cedar Bluffs, to Habitat of Humanity for Omaha. So Trust Fund is focused on reaching all kinds of rural and metro and large and small. So encourage you to reach out to any of the recipients from last year or past years. I think they can also give you some good insights on how to apply and how to go about getting prepared for the application time. Those awards, you could at the bottom, it mentions that those awards ranged anywhere from a $40,000 award for technical assistance all the way up to a $670,000 award. I should mention that this year we do have a set maximum for the project cost of the awards. It's $500,000. That does not include the administrative costs, which will go on top of that. But all those details can be found online in the application guidelines. I'm also going to just show you a few examples from the 2021 projects. The city of Syracuse did an owner-occupied housing rehab of 18 housing units. They received an award of $567,000. The city of South Sioux City is using trust fund for acquisition, site improvements that are infrastructure focused. Also, they will have that in conjunction with new construction of 8 housing units that'll be receiving home buyer assistance. The investment there was $500,000. The city of Pierce is doing a new construction project in which they use the funds for acquisition, for operating reserves and rent-up reserves of 6 rental units with a $500,000 investment. And the village of Clearwater is working on 2 housing units that they will provide home buyer assistance for an eligible home buyer. And their total award was $221,000. This is an example of a trust fund project that was owner occupied rehab. You can just see the difference on the left-hand side is the before and then the after picture. So a lot of these improvements for owner occupied are efficiency wise, but also the interior and truly can help provide a safer living environment. But you can tell just by the change here what it does for even the neighborhood. This here is a picture of a new construction project that took place in Takema, Nebraska. The trust fund helped fund construction subsidy and direct home buyer assistance to a low to moderate income household, making up to 120% area median income. And that is the maximum area median income allowed for the trust fund. So that hits some of the workforce in a variety of communities, but you can also target less than 120%. And this picture here is of a Holy Name Housing Corporation's new construction project in North Omaha. This is a little bit of a unique project in that they do a rent to own. So applicants will rent for a period of time, and during that time, they're receiving education and resources that are preparing them to be successful homeowners. At the time the rental period ends, then they will take on a mortgage. And it has been a very successful program over the years. This is another new construction project of a duplex in Bloomfield, Nebraska. And this picture is from Scotts Bluff. The trust fund helped on this one with minor rehab, and then a down payment assistance was used for the eligible home buyer. Down payment assistance and closing costs are considered the direct home buyer assistance. As you can see by the smile on these faces, this is what gets us all to come to work every day, is seeing that changes like this make such a difference in families' lives, to have a safe, clean environment after they move into something that's either newly construction or new rehab. This cute little brick house was done by the Southwest Nebraska Community Betterment Project in Southwest Nebraska, and it received some down payment assistance from the trust fund. And this picture is a new construction project that was done in Binkelman, Nebraska. And this last picture is of a groundbreaking that was held last spring in Nebraska City for the new construction of some homebuyer units. This particular one was a disaster-focused project, and they're building 4 units in response to the 2019 flood. So always remember, if you received an award, to take a lot of pictures and to let us know whenever you're having a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting on a newly constructed, because we would love to give you the coverage that you deserve after going through a project and seeing it through like this. The next project is a federal funded project, the Community Development Block Grant. We also call it CDBG. This provides funding for projects to encourage the use of additional federal, state, and private resources. It provides several programs in the state using the federal funding in economic development and in community development. But the housing activity that we use CDBG for is applicable to local units of government. They are the only allowed applicant for our OOR, so our owner-occupied rehab activity. We're not set up to support county-wide housing on CDBG projects, and that's why it is a municipal focused only. The only communities that are excluded from being able to come through the state for CDBG OOR program are Omaha, Lincoln, Bellevue, Grand Island, and that is because they are receiving their funding directly through HUD. The project units have to be within the corporate limits of the community, and the only housing activity that, of course, that I mentioned that we're funding is the owner-occupied rehab. The minimum project amount is $250,000, and the maximum is $750,000. So these are owner-occupied homes that usually need a significant amount of rehab in order to provide safe living conditions. A lot of times the rehab is focused on energy efficiency. And we help these communities to establish their owner-occupied rehab program, and then the homeowners apply directly to the community. And then they must bring the unit up to a minimum rehab standards using professional and licensed contractors. All the assistance that is provided through the Community Development Block Grant needs to be forgivable to the homeowners. Match is not required as part of the housing application through CDBG. However, it does receive points during the scoring process. And there are a couple other activities under our owner-occupied rehab that can be also applied for, and that is the housing management costs, lead-based paint testing, which is $1,500 per unit, and general administration costs for the staff costs in administering the grant. And these contracts are a 30-month contract under the Community Development Block Grant. So you can go to the next slide, which is one of the homeowner units that was rehabbed using CDBG funding. And I'm just going to end now to let you know that the 2022 application cycle has not been announced yet. However, it typically opens up in June or July. The housing projects under CDBG do require a pre-application. That's usually July 15th timing, when those would be due, which would mean September 15th would be when full application is due. Of course, the application guidelines will get posted when that cycle opens up, and it will step you through and let you know everything that you need. There, of course, will be also training, webinars, and never forget to reach out to myself or your DED housing representative. And I am now going to turn this over to Michelle Grimes, and she's going to speak to you about the home program.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the Home Investment Partnership Fund is a resource for affordable housing to lower income households by strengthening the capacity for nonprofit housing providers and private housing developers in the state. Our eligible applicants are our community housing development organizations, or also known as CHODOs, our developers, owners, and sponsors. The eligible housing activities with home funds can be homebuyer activities, which those are generally through our CHODO application. developing new construction affordable housing, purchasing an existing building and rehabbing it for the use of affordable housing. And those items are, the activities are under the CHOTO application. And then with the other source or the eligible activity can be for rental housing and organizational operating. So the portion of the home funds that we don't use for the CHOTO application goes into a joint application with NIFA, and those are the 9% LIHTC tax credit rounds that are twice a year, and then also with the Crane application, joint application with NIFA, and those are generally monthly. Next slide, please. This is an example of some home funds. It's a purchase, rehab, resale, and I believe this one was in Norfolk, so you can see the difference between when they purchased the property and they found a home buyer that wanted this property, and then they discussed what needed to be done to bring it up to standards, and then what the homeowner would like as well on the inside and the outside. So this is a before and after picture of a CHOTO project, a purchase, rehab, resale. Next slide, please. This is a project in Wisner. This is, they're single-family homes and they are rental projects, and there are 10 single-family homes. This land was a vacated school. It was a consolidated school. Wisner went with another community, and then it left all of the land vacant. So the developer bought up the land and developed it into rental housing. And 2 of these houses will be home assisted. This is a variety of the homes out west. These are rental units between Building a Better Tomorrow and the Mesner Group. These are also single-family rentals, and they're duplexes or triplexes on these projects. And the investment in these are anywhere between $298,000 to $680,000 for gap financing. Next, yep. The National Housing Trust Fund. This is an affordable housing resource for increasing and preserving decent and safe sanitary affordable housing for extremely low and very low income households, including homeless families. So this program goes 30% AMI or below, and the affordability period is 20 years. Eligible applicants are nonprofit 501c3s, 501c4s, or related organizations, and public housing authorities. Eligible housing activities: acquisition and rehab of housing to create rental housing for persons with extremely low income, rehab of new construction of rental housing, and adaptive reuse of buildings for rental housing, and also operating cost assistance and reserves. And we also partner with NIFA on the joint application with our National Housing Trust Funds through the 9% round and the Crane, and then we also have an open cycle for National Housing Trust Funds. This project's in Norfolk. It's the Skyline rental apartments, and this actually had home funds and National Housing Trust Funds. It's 92 units that they renovated by floor. So the bottom floor is a community room, and the offices and a community action center is in there. And then floor by floor, they went and renovated it. And we have studios and 1-bedroom units in here. And each program, we invested $500,000. This total project was a $14 million project. Next slide. This is Villa Rose in Omaha, Nebraska. Holy Name Housing and Nebraska Housing Resources are partnering with this. It's a 2019 application, and they will build in both North Omaha and South Omaha, and a total of 23 units, and these are also rentals, 2 to 4 bedroom units, and 4 of them will be HTF, or the National Housing Trust Fund, that will benefit 30% AMI. And there's $750,000 invested in here with National Housing Trust Funds, and this is over a $6 million project. Next slide. This one is the rental units, and it used to be the Columbus Community Hospital, the old hospital, And they have a senior center in the bottom. And then they have a community room along with the man cave and the ladies cave on the main floor. And then they renovated the floors above it to be housing rental units for elderly. So there's 29 one-bedrooms and 5 two-bedrooms with a total of 34 rental units. And Mesner Development Group is the developer on this one. This was a $1.5 million investment, and it is a $7.5 million project, total project. And that one is completed. The next one here is the Fremont, the row of Fremont, Hoppy Development out of Fremont. This was a 2019 application, also a joint application with NIFA, and there's going to be several phases in this development. There's 25 four-bedroom units, and 5 will be National Housing Trust funds. And we invested $861,000 in trust funds, and then $5 million in this phase will be the total project cost. Next slide.
Back to me. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Barb. I really do appreciate you sharing information on the programs that you help oversee at the department. I think what I really would like communities and organizations to take away from this is hopefully you've seen a glimpse of some successful projects. And that's just a small glimpse of some of the projects we've invested in. We invest in probably about 100 projects each year. So we have hundreds of projects on our books, and we're really just one investor and one partner in the project. The projects that we invest in really take partnership, collaboration from a variety of partners, from developers, contractors, owners, communities, nonprofits. And so with that, I encourage you, reach out. When Lori and her team sends out the presentation, they're also going to send out this map for you in a PDF, so you can have all of our team's contact information. Please reach out to our program reps or any one of our team members. Invite them to your community. Have them come learn more about your community, learn about what your housing projects are or your housing needs are, so we can help connect you with the right programs and help be a partner from the start on your project. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben, who has been a successful applicant and partner with communities to access some of the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Funds, and he's going to talk about 2 of his projects he has underway. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Lynn. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to express my gratitude for being able to talk with everybody, and like you all, always excited to learn. So taking notes myself. So. Excited to share a couple of the projects that I've worked on and how those worked, maybe some challenges and things I took from it, and kind of as Sharon had alluded to. So I've always kind of been involved in real estate, enjoyed real estate, had kind of a passion for it, and specifically multifamily housing, and always kind of knew with the smaller towns that I work with, Pierce and Madison and Tilden and now Norfolk, I always kind of saw it as a race, right? So, and it's neat to have so many people on the call that are passionate about bringing the housing to these communities, because, as an example, like this project in Madison, we have 12 units there and they're all full. And if I built 50 more, I know I could probably rent them in 3 months. So it's definitely a race for housing. So, but this first project that I worked on, is, it's an alternative way to build housing, right? Most people wouldn't look at a huge 2-story bowling alley, once theater and say, hey, that could be apartments, right? That could be housing for the next generation. Some of our partners, so we worked with the city of Madison, which at the time had a really great economic team. We're awarded a nice award with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And with these projects, I love them and I'm passionate about them. And I think if a developer isn't passionate about seeing one of these buildings transform, I don't think you'd ever do it, because it's definitely not the path of least resistance. Also had a great contractor, right? That's huge. In Rod Geisler, REG Construction, he was a great partner. Also a great architect, great structural engineer, kind of the whole team, right? So on a project like this, you really kind of are assembling a team of folks that can work together, that can put something like this together. So And then also very important, Madison County Bank was a great partner. You know, there's some challenges with the grant and with, you know, you just have to have a bank that's willing to work with you on the way that you have to finance these projects. So, but yeah, total project cost, 963,000. We had a decent amount more than that into it. So one thing with the kind of projects we do is the contingency number is probably a bigger number than if we were building on slab, because as you deconstruct a building like this, you don't know what you're going to find, right? So as we deconstruct these buildings, generally the cost never goes down. So, but yeah, if we can go to the next slide, I'll kind of show you some of the pictures of this building. So this is we built out 6 of these buildings. This was by far the one that was the most far gone. I can't imagine if we didn't get that award and if we didn't do what we did to this building, I don't think it probably would have had a purpose going forward. So, you know, the top left picture there, so the basement of this building was supported basically by what looks like tiny little telephone poles on dirt. Half of the poles swayed like this, right? They weren't connected to the floor. And so what we had to do is we had to put all new infrastructure in the bottom, right? And that's kind of where this grant comes in so nice, is because just to get these buildings back to where you can build them, you need that much money just to get them back to where they're structurally sound, where you can build what you want to build. So the top right picture there, that's the roof, right? They had a fire in this building. And so half of the rafters were basically kind of falling in on themselves. That back wall there, right, when the sun was out, you could see through the wall. So we had 2 masons for about a month just fixing that wall, tuck pointing it, re-putting in the masonry. Guys 40 feet in the air on scaffolding with harnesses, putting in new infrastructure in the roof to make sure it was sound so we could put a new roof on it. So, you know, when it rained outside, it was raining inside. The bottom sorry about that. Yeah, the bottom left picture just shows these are the bowling lanes, right? So it doesn't look like a big deal, but to take out 8 bowling lanes that weigh thousands and thousands of pounds, it takes, you know, days and days and days to just the demo part of it. So, yeah, next slide. So this is kind of cool. So when you deconstruct these buildings, right? So when they're built, people don't usually think they're going to be deconstructed, but you find interesting things. So I think of all the buildings that I've done, you know, this was kind of neat. So this actually has the guy's name that was working on the building at the time, and it has the date. So June 24th of 1925. We found this as we took apart the metal crown molding. So I think we probably found 6 or 8 pieces of wood with guys' names and dates on them. So that was kind of neat. Next slide. So yeah, the left picture, maybe not the greatest picture, but you can kind of see there. So we put in all new infrastructure, all new supports, all new posts and beams, and had to level out the floor 1 beam, 1 rafter at a time. So the left one is, you know, kind of what was there before. You know, the right is what's there now with the new support. So next picture. So this building it used to be a theater, right? It had half a second floor. Okay, so it used to be a theater room upstairs. There was no insulation at the time, so it was actually like a foot thick concrete wall that insulated this theater projection room, which is the top right piece. But as we took all that apart, the top left picture is standing on the second floor as we got it put in. Next picture, next frame. And yeah, just some additional pictures of some of the construction. We can probably go to the next frame on that. And then, yeah, just some of the completion, you know, as we get closer to completion. So essentially we gutted the second floor, took it off, which to do that, to take it on a second floor, basically what you're doing is you're building infrastructure from the bottom to the top to support the roof until you can get the second floor on. And then you're building it from scratch. So it's just the deconstruction part of it takes months. It's pretty difficult. Next frame. And one more maybe. So these are what they look like completed. So, you know, our units are, we try to build some very nice upscale units that'll hopefully be nice for a long time. So, you know, we're adding central air, central heat. You know, we're making them, you know, like you would make a new house, right? Soundproof insulation. We want it to be, you know, really nice for our tenants. Something that's rewarding, I guess, for me when I do these is, you know, for Madison as an example, Madison would be as good of an example as any. Is and I don't remember the exact statistic, it's like 30 or 40% of the people that work in Madison don't live in Madison. So, doing this project, it was neat because we saw people move, from other communities where the commute was half an hour, and they were just so thrilled to be able to live in Madison and not have to drive, an hour or hour and a half to work back and forth. So, next slide. The building we're working on now, and this is kind of a neat one for me, just because I'm from Norfolk. I've never built in Norfolk before. This is the first time. So it was an old theater, right? I remember this as a kid. I remember going to a movie back in, God, I don't even know. I remember going to 101 Dalmatians at this theater, right? But I knew the folks that were on the board of the theater group, and they had tried, really hard to raise money to turn it back into a theater, and unfortunately that didn't come to fruition. And kind of like the other building, right? The roof was bad and it was falling in, and it just really didn't have a home. It didn't have a purpose. And so, yeah, we worked with the city of Norfolk, and again, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund awarded us a grant, which was huge. DED has been phenomenal. Had amazing people at DED, and then Madison County Bank. We are using a different contractor, so we don't have REG Construction. Using a larger contractor for this one. Again, very similar. If you look at the budget on this, I can tell you it's higher, right? Unfortunately, when we got into, we basically had all the pieces together, and then COVID happened, right? We had the architect plans and the civil plans, and the grant was in place, and then the call of, hey, everything's went up 35%. Do you still want to do this thing? And obviously we did, but it's, definitely the costs of everything have gotten higher for everybody. So, next slide. So the challenges with this one was, again, it had half a second floor. It used to be a theater, so there was a projection room upstairs, and half the building had a second floor. The other challenge is when you come into a theater, right? You're on one level, and then the theater slopes 7 feet to the back, because you have the sloped area for all the seats. And so what we had to do is we had to bring in a tremendous amount of backfill after we demoed, and we leveled everything out to one level, which took a significant amount of time. All new footings, all new floor system, added the second floor, right, which is where the apartments are going to be. And then on the bottom floor, we have about 8,000 square feet, which will serve downtown Norfolk for probably 2 or 3 venues. But these are some pictures of the demo. This is a very extensive demo project. There was a 40-foot tall lean-to in the back that had to be deconstructed one beam at a time, with a guy standing up there with a harness. Pretty difficult. Next slide. So here's some pictures of the building process. So, on the left, this is one of our nice 2-bedroom units right on the front there with the nice windows. One thing the theater group did before I took over is they put a tremendous amount of money into the front of this building, so it looks exactly like it did back in 1924. So it's a really beautiful building. The beams on the right are 100-year-old beams. They were disgusting and rusty and nasty, and we're able to find a way to refinish them so that they'll go through the apartments kind of for some original art or some original style. Next slide. And then on the back where we had, this is kind of neat. So on the back where we had the 40-foot tall lean-to, and that was actually where all the props were, right? So when they had the plays, all the props went up into the attic through this thing. So we took it off, and then we could decide whether we wanted to build the roof back flat or actually build it back up. So these are 2 units right here, where that'll be 2-story, 3-bedroom units right downtown Norfolk. So we're pretty excited about those. Next slide. But no, happy to answer any questions, I guess. I guess some things that are important to me. I know you're probably, and I've talked to maybe some of the folks on the call, and some I haven't. Things that are important to me is the communities we're working in. We want the economic team and the community to be involved. We want them to be excited about the project as we are. These aren't easy projects, so don't really want to be climbing uphill or work. I don't want to be working in a community that maybe doesn't want it or appreciate it just because we want to be active in the community, and just somewhere where there's need. But yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments at all.
You to all of you. Yes, this is the time where you can enter your questions either in the chat box or open your microphones and ask. There was a question from Sharon earlier on about whether or not there's a maximum investment with Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund per home to rehab. If one of the DED team want to address that question as others are entering their questions.
I can take that question. This is Barb Pierce. And this year, the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund for rehabilitation maximum have raised it from $25,000 to $40,000 per unit. Some of the folks on the call today may know that for many years it's been at $25,000, largely due to some federal regulations that kind of were overlaid over the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But in 2021 cycle, we started to peel some of those federal regulations off. In 21, we stopped requiring the National Environmental Protection Act regulations, and then there's been some changes with the lead-based paint, but also then this allowed us to be able to raise that maximum for rehab to $40,000. So we hope that that will be helpful.
Clarify, that's only the trust fund. That doesn't apply to community development block grant, correct?
That's correct. I'm speaking to the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Yes.
Okay. And that's moving forward, starting in 2022.
That's the 2022 cycle.
Okay.
Yes.
Super. Okay. So, what questions do you have for our presenters? Ben, you're amazing taking on those kinds of projects. Makes me excited to do it, but I don't want to do it, if that makes any sense.
I have a follow-up question for Barb. 40,000 per unit for rehab, and then is that max period per unit if you're going to do rehab, or can you do like down payment assistance in addition?
So if you're doing a purchase rehab resale, then you could have a primary activity including housing, the home buyer assistance. So overall, there's a $500,000 maximum as a project cost maximum. So putting your home buyer assistance plus your rehab per unit together depending on the number of units, there's a $500,000 maximum to use Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund on. I wanted to also make the point that the $40,000 of trust fund dollars that can be used on rehab, perhaps if there's a rehab unit that needed more than that, the organization can use other sources. I know there are sources for weatherization, or we really encourage using other sources as well as to layer on for the financing in the event your program wants to be able to spend more on the rehab per unit than what trust fund will fund. So I hope that makes sense and answers the question.
Perfect.
Okay. We have a couple questions for our presenters. Sarah wanted to know if anyone has had success with rental rehab projects. They have some rental rehab funds in their community and are having a difficult time getting landlords interested in the long-term commitment to rent the house post-rehab to income eligible tenants. So she's wanting to know if anyone at DED or on the webinar has seen success in that area.
So we do invest in rental rehab projects. They've been a little harder to get off the ground. I can't pinpoint at the moment like a successful one. But I'd reach out to Southwest Nebraska Community Betterment Corporation has a rental rehab project, but they have the rental units identified ahead of time. So, but if it's kind of like a spec rental rehab where the renter or the owners of the rental units apply, can't give you one off the top of my head unless Michelle or Barb can.
Okay. In this particular case, it would be existing units where landlords would apply for assistance.
We have communities that are talking about it. So Barb,
yeah, I know that there's been consideration with landlords being able to access rental rehab. So perhaps there'd be a community able to apply for trust fund monies to put together a program where landlords would come to the community and request funding, whether it be a low interest loan or a forgivable grant to the actual landlord. But the tenants that are in, whether it be current tenants or future tenants, they would be the beneficiaries of such a project, and they would have to be eligible beneficiaries. So we haven't seen, I can't speak to a certain city that has done that. So if somebody has and is on the call, we'd love to hear from them. But I think that would definitely be a project to consider. Perhaps maybe landlords are not doing a lot of energy efficiency and major rehabilitation because they just aren't willing to spend the monies, or the interest rates are up. Maybe some kind of partnership like this would be a catalyst to get some of those things done. In the end, we want more healthy living environments, getting rid of lead-based paint, getting, carpets replaced and fresh paint, or new appliances, better roofs, all of that leads to more energy efficient homes. And so then a lot of times the tenants are paying a lot less in utilities. So that helps their standard of living. So again, if anyone has done those projects, we'd love to hear about them.
Thank you. Beverly also has a question about the time frame from approval to completion of the trust fund for rehab. Can you kind of talk about from the day it's awarded to an applicant to tell us the time frame, I guess, from start to finish, from your perspective?
Yeah. So a lot of times I encourage prospective applicants to start considering a year ahead of the type of project that their community is in need of. And a lot of that knowledge is driven by perhaps a housing study done either in the community or countywide, surveys being done within the community, and just that community knowledge that leaders have of the kinds of projects they need. Sometimes it's partnerships with industry also to figure out even the types of beneficiaries or the income level beneficiaries they're going to want to target. So I think all of that information gathering and data gathering can take some time, and then you want to build your partnerships throughout that year, and also kind of be aware of the types of questions that are going to be coming up in the application to show readiness of you having put together this. So let's say you then apply. We usually have the application period the first quarter of every year. It'll get posted and opened up. This year, May 5th is the due date of the full application. So once that's done, then it goes through a review process, and the award announcements will happen sometime after July 31st. Once an award announcement takes place, then the department's staff will start to get a hold of the awardees and set up contract review time. And they'll go through the contract and what that requires. They'll go through any questions that there may still be lingering on the project's pro forma units. Just depends on the type of project. That usually takes about a month, 30 to 45 days. We hope to have all contracts signed. And then they enter the special conditions phase. So every contract will outline some additional information that needs to be submitted to DED prior to receiving a release of funds notice letter. Depending on the type of project and how ready a community is and a project is, that can take anywhere from 1 month to 3 months. Commonly, we see that all special conditions are supposed to be in by 12/31 of that year. And then that gives the department time to start to review all of that. Sometimes there's some back and forth. A lot of times that's involving the program guidelines that are developed to run the program. So after that, we hope that within a month of receiving all special conditions items, a community could get their release of funds letter. Some project types move along faster than others. I think that having some of the federal regulations taking off has also helped reduce some of the time.
So from the time of award, is it 3 years for a community to complete their project? 2 years?
So this year, all housing projects will be a 3-year contract, and that starts with the contract date. So that's the award. Actually, notice of award date is when your contract period starts. So, but if that's done in September, say, and you get through special conditions by December, then you get your release of funds letter. That's when you may start your project. You cannot don't do any expenditures prior to release of funds letter.
But staff are available to walk us through any of those, correct?
Yeah, highly recommend going through the pre-recorded workshops, the pre-application one, and then the full application, because it will cover some of those things at times. Also, your program reps will step you through throughout the contract review period and throughout the special conditions. You have a lot of communications with the program reps.
Great. Thank you. What other questions are out there that are still waiting to be asked of our presenters today? You're
This
pondering.
is Steve Peregrine.
Yes.
On the expenditures prior to release of funds, if you invest your own funds to do some, engineer pre-development design work on the housing units and stuff, and then don't expect those to be reimbursed through grant funds, I'm assuming that's still okay, correct?
So Barb told me I had to answer. so yes, those are considered leverage funds, I believe, in the application, and they're not part of the contract. And so we'd consider they're not cash match. It's leveraged. And so yeah, so if you do some pre-planning, engineering, yes, you could do that before you have a receive release of funds, but it's not part of the project that you go under contract with us for.
That help? We do have another question, and I believe this is directed at Ben, but Sarah was curious what the cost per square foot might be on the upper story housing renovation project.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit hard to say. I'm going to kind of give you a roundabout answer, because we're going to have 8,000 square feet of commercial on the bottom floor. So, but if I take the entire cost of the whole project, and I forget that there's a bottom floor that has value, about $145 a foot. But that would be again, somehow you got to subtract the value of the bottom floor. But yeah, about $145 a foot.
Okay. Okay. Super. So, well, as we begin to wrap up, we do have our presenters' contact information on the screen for you, and that will be also in the slides that will be sent out to you post-webinar, either tomorrow or first part of next week. So feel free to reach out to all of them. And one of the great things about the Learning Network is the relationships that are being established and just the sharing of information around the state. So just wanted to give you that information and encourage you. They are great people and doing great things. And Ben's investment, as I said, is encouraging. And if that can be duplicated in other communities, I'm sure he would be willing to provide you some input on what you're considering. So as we do begin to wrap up, also, I want to remind you that all past webinars and today's webinar are posted on our SCED website, and that website is listed there for you. So also, we conclude our webinars each and every month telling you when the next webinar is, and that will be on St. Patty's Day, I believe, March 17th at 2 p.m. And that topic is currently under development. We are working to confirm that speaker. So we'll be sharing that information with you in just a couple weeks as we begin to market that webinar. And we hope that you'll join us on March 17th back here at the HomeNE Learning Network. So once again, Lynn, Michelle, Barb, and Ben, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being available and making information available to us and being accessible to those. I'm sure there's going to be questions come to mind, and I hope that our participants will be reaching out to you. So your presentation is greatly appreciated today. So thank you. So with that, are there any last questions or comments? If not, thank you to all of you again for joining us. And we just want to say have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you again in March. Oh, and Steve mentioned the NIFA conference coming up.